change. So, the first question is Rachel Hand.
At Sheffield Climate Alliance, we are very pleased that the City of Sheffield is taking the climate emergency with the gravity that it deserves. Please could you explain how the other institutions of our city and ordinary citizens can contribute to making the huge structural changes that are necessary to make this important vision a reality?
The next question is from Dr. David Jones. Oh, you are, sorry.
Is this on? So, my name is Dr. Ben Jones and I'm from Extinction Rebellion. So I'm going to ask what immediate and emergency actions will Sheffield City Council take in 2019 to reduce emissions? What effect will these have on the total emissions? And what is the best estimate for Sheffield's total annual emissions of CO2 and other greenhouse gases?
Thank you. The next question is from Heather Hunt.
Heather Hunt, Extinction Rebellion. If the motion declaring Sheffield the climate emergency is passed, which I hope it is, will the Council ensure that this is communicated to the residents of Sheffield by putting positive and clear messages on the website and the action that the Council is prepared to take, as well as putting that in postal communications that go to residents on a routine basis?
Jenny Carpenter, co-chair of Sheffield Climate Alliance. How will the Council ensure that the decisions it takes across every portfolio contribute to countering climate change? And in particular, will the Council urgently seek funding for a programme of retrofitting Sheffield's housing stock so that heating bills and carbon emissions can simultaneously be reduced, so contributing to fairness at the same time?
Thank you. The final question on this topic for this stage is Robert Howarth. Mr. Howarth.
Robert Howarth, Chair, Unite Community Sheffield, and also Labour Party member. We know that refurbishment of houses is more carbon neutral than demolition and rebuild. And neglect is the worst policy of all. Will the Council plan now for a massive programme of refurbishment and new build under Council tenure in preparation for an austerity-busting Corbyn government? And what practical steps will they take now in 2019?
Submitted, so I may understand your question, or you may change your question, we'll find out. I'll refer those questions initially to Councillor Jack Scott. You may also have to refer some to other cabinet colleagues as well.
Just 1 second, Jack. Can I just also please point out that we've had feedback from listeners now saying that we can get the members, when they're speaking, if they can speak clearly into the mic, just so they can hear. We can't turn up the volume in the other room, so whenever the members are speaking, just make sure you're speaking into your mic. Thank you very much.
Okay. On Rachel's question first about working with other partners, that's why we established the Green City Partnership Board. It's absolutely vital that we have an organisation in the city that's able to bring together the different partners who are responsible for something in the region of 65% of the carbon emissions within our city, and have control over not just their own supply chains but also their own employees, as well as a whole range of other factors as well. And I think that's the place that we need to have those sorts of conversations. And I absolutely don't take away at all from the fact those conversations need to be more urgent and more pressing than they've been hitherto. And I'm determined as one of the co-chairs alongside Councillor Dagnall to make sure that we get those conversations happening speedily following today's motion. On Dr Jones's point, I can't see Dr Jones. On Dr Jones' question about immediate and urgent actions, for brevity I shan't go into them immediately today. I'm also not convinced that the actions we've set out already will be sufficient to meet the level of ambition and the vision that we've outlined already, which is why we want to take time, a very short period of time, to make sure that those actions are absolutely as stringent and challenging as possible, because we can't afford to get this wrong. So, Mr Jones, I've got your contact details and I will write to you with the action plan we have in place at the moment. That is a necessary but not sufficient set of actions that we will need to take in 2019. And I really welcome any further feedback, whether that's from you or other interested individuals, or indeed members of the Green City Partnership Board, to make sure that that is sufficiently robust and has been challenged properly, and that we are all convinced together that there's nothing else that Sheffield could reasonably be expected to do beyond what we've set out. And then Ms Hunt's question was around communications. So the council website, I will undertake to do what I can to make sure we publicise what we've done already. We have done a press release on it, and we'll do a further one following today as well. I'm absolutely determined. I think the broader point is absolutely important here as well, isn't it? That we won't get where we need to as a city or as a society unless we all make different types of changes, as well as the systematic, fundamental ones that we need to see in terms of how our city's built and how it's designed and how we move around it and everything else as well. So the communications part of that is important. I also think it's worth reflecting that there's a temptation, I might have done it myself, as I suspect Mr Rowe did too, there's a temptation to try and scare people into action on climate change because it is such a significant issue and because the consequences of inaction are so bad. And I think when we communicate this with the public, we have to have a much broader, positive vision for what we want our environment to look like. So the reason for taking action on climate change isn't just because we want to avoid the devastating consequences of inaction, it's actually because a fairer, greener city is better for all of us regardless. And I think our communications need to bring people together and inspire hope and not just fear as well. And I need to think through the best way there is for us to communicate that. And then Mr Howarth and Ms Carpenter's questions around council housing. My understanding is, and I'm happy to be corrected if this isn't the case, but my genuine understanding on this matter is that we have ensured, we have insulated our council properties to the extent that that is possible. We've also seen over the last 15 years, I have to say, started and initiated and grown exponentially by the last Labour government and then cut back dramatically by the coalition government. A huge amount of investment put in by Labour into home insulation of a whole different energy, a whole different range of suppliers and providers. The challenge for us now in Sheffield, and I'm quite happy to share the information on this, isn't in our council housing stock. Actually, the challenge for us is in our private rented stock. In terms of insulation, the homes that are coldest, the homes that are the leakiest in terms of energy, broadly speaking, of course there's always some exceptions to this, but broadly speaking, the properties that we need to take the most urgent action to insulate aren't those that are in council ownership or indeed other registered provider ownership. It's those properties that are in the private rented sector, and that's why, not just for reasons around insulation, but for reasons of fairness, reasons of equality, reasons of social justice, it's so important that we get a government that will give us the tools we need to regulate our private rented sector in a proper way. Because at the moment we have an absurd situation where the tenants in our city who are most exposed to climate change are also the tenants in our city who are most exposed to economic injustice, to bad landlords, to people who aren't taking responsibility for their property. And that's why it's absolutely critical that we do everything we can to impress upon national government the need for real change in this area. I hope that covers the questions. I think there's probably a sense from the room and from those of you who are here today to ask these questions of just how important this is. And I'm absolutely clear that announcing, declaring a climate emergency today is the beginning of the conversation that we need to have, a different type of conversation on climate change. And just to say finally, I'm really looking forward to working with all of you to make sure we take the action that we have to take as a city and indeed as a society to avoid the catastrophic impact of climate change. Thank you very much.
The next question is from Thomas Wills.
Mr. Wills. When will Sheffield City Council ensure that its electricity from a zero carbon supplier.
Thank you. For your question to Councillor Olivia Blake, Deputy Leader.
Well, thank you for your thank you for your question, because I think it's really an important one. We are currently looking at procuring our electricity, which I think is highlighted in some of the amendments and some of the motions today. I would like to address Scotland as well, if that's okay on this issue, because I think my understanding is currently we do have quite a good energy mix on the current electricity contract that we have. And also, obviously, we do also have methods of creating energy in the city through the energy recovery units, which obviously a lot of other cities don't have, which does create heat and power for a lot of buildings in the city. So I think we are ahead of other places, but it's definitely worth just seeing what Councillor Scott thinks about this, because we are going out for procurement, and obviously we need to take on board, as we do with a lot of things in our ethical procurement policy, the impact on the environment as well as other issues.
Thank you very much. So Council is absolutely right to highlight the importance of decentralised energy as well. And if there's any prospect that we could look at not just renewable energy as part of this, which isn't a guarantee and absolute commitment, because we need to do the work around what's available and what's possible, then actually decentralised energy could be part of that mix as well. Council is also right to point out our current energy mix is renewable. There's not a guarantee that it is renewable. So when it was procured last time, my understanding is that we secured an agreement that wherever possible, we would secure renewable energy. Obviously, that was several years ago, but that didn't possibly precede this administration. So actually, we're not in a position to guarantee that it is. So it happens to be renewable at the moment. I think we want to see, has that worked? Have there been occasions when the council has not used renewable energy, first of all, and then secondly, we need to make an assessment of the choices and consequences of looking at a guaranteed renewable supply. Clearly, we wouldn't want to be in a position where should there be an interruption to renewable energy supplies, which is possible, that meant the council didn't have power. I don't think any of us would want to be in that position. So that backup option, not a backstop, that backup option is important, and we need to understand the different choices and options that we have in moving that forward. And it's also coming on me, I suppose, to say that for this definition and this purpose, renewable energy would also include nuclear energy as well, and that would be something that we will have to also consider as part of the mix, given how much of the UK's renewable energy comes from nuclear energy production currently. So that's not to say it's not an ambition, it's absolutely something that I know Council is determined to work on. What we need to do is get into the detail and understand this, and one of the things I've discovered through working on different aspects of energy, it is extraordinarily intricate, and it would be wrong for any of us today to give a cast-iron guarantee that that's what we're going to do. But you've got a sense, I think, from both of these contributions that it's our ambition and it's the direction we want to move in. Thank you very much.
David Mason, Extinction Rebellion. I thought this question had been taken up earlier, the first section of it. What is the average U value for council houses in Sheffield? What steps are being taken to improve this? How are the council planning to encourage landlords and private homeowners to better insulate their properties? Thank you.
Thank you. For your question to Councillor Jim Stanley, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods and Community Safety.
Thank you for the question, David. In terms of response, I'm going to give you a written response, because I'm not in a position to actually get that detailed information now, other than the fact that we are actively encouraging all landlords and private homeowners to better insulate their properties. Councillor Scott has referred earlier in terms of what we're trying to do within the private rented sector, who I think are suffering from some of the worst effects of poor housing, and we will continue to push that. But I will give you a written response. What I would say is we haven't got your contact details on here, if you could provide that. Thank you.
I've now got 6 questions on the same topic, which I'll take together before referring for an answer. So the first is from Rosie Dunkley.
Rosie Dunkley from Extinction Rebellion. Why are the councils still prioritising investment in road schemes, such as the Inner Ring Road, which will lead to increase in traffic and emissions? Why do the targets of the FCC transport strategy include improved accessibility to city centre by road, improved accessibility to Upper Don Valley and parts of Lower Don Valley by road, additional highway capacity, new road links between Sheffield and Rotherham, and improved Trans-Pennine road links between Sheffield and Manchester?
The next question is from Heather Rostrom.
What steps will be taken in 2019 to make people feel safe to cycle in Sheffield? Why has IKEA been able to get out of its commitment to improve cycling provision?
The next question is from Henry Budden.
When will the council introduce clean air spaces within the city in which polluting vehicles are restricted?
Next question is from Frank Sheridan.
On the same vein, beyond the clean air zone, which only encourages changes from older to newer vehicles, will the council introduce comprehensive road pricing using the powers you have under the Transport Act 2000 and the Local Transport Act 2008?
Next question is from Joe Millett.
Joe Millett. What steps will be taken in 2019 to make it more comfortable and convenient for people to walk in Sheffield? What action will the council take against pavement parking to improve conditions for walking? Will the council put people first and not cars?
And the final question is from Naomi.
I'm here. So, Naomi from Extinction Rebellion. When does council intend to bring forward the intended workplace parking levy? And in general, in regard to measures to discourage people from travelling by car into the city centre, how does the council intend to liaise with businesses that provide parking that make money from that and might therefore oppose such measures?
Thank you. I refer those questions to Councillor Jack Scott.
Thank you very much, John. And thank you for all those questions. I'll try and take them in the order that they came, some slightly different to the ones that I had prepared for, so I'll do my very best. The first, in terms of the why we're talking about increasing road levels from Studley. So the first of all, I don't sound flippant at all, but it's because buses go on roads as well. So actually it's absolutely critical in terms of public transport. We know there are significant parts of our city where we're seeing decreases in bus reliability and punctuality, and this would be the case whoever owned those buses and whoever operated them and whatever level of regulation there was. We are in a position, I'm afraid, where our buses are too congested because of cars and other vehicle traffic and other motorists, and efficiency to some of those junctions and priority for buses will help with that. Other than Bristol, we have more priority lanes for buses than any other core city, and we prioritise that. It's absolutely right that a bus that has 50 people in it has 50 times the priority of a car that has one person in it. We've said that consistently, but I wouldn't want anyone to think that just adding roads was purely about cars. Actually, adding roads is also a significant necessary component of how we make sure we get better public transport in this city. And I'm quite happy to share the modelling that we've done on some of those specific aspects as well. On the point about the inner ring road, I think it's a really good case in point. I know it's been controversial, I know it was called in, and I understand some of the discussions that we had on that were actually helpful in terms of making sure we were clear about the intention of that scheme. So the inner ring road junction changes that we're seeing will be better for pedestrians, so we will see a reduction in the number of crossings that pedestrians from the outside of the inner ring road need to make it to the inside of it, from 4 to 3. We will also see new segregated cycle lanes being added in, as well as a new two-can crossing for cyclists as well. And we see very significant reductions at peak times in public transport use as well. So for example, on the 3A service we see a reduction of 199 seconds following this work being done, which is significant in terms of the punctuality and reliability of that service. And we see similar things on the 6, the 8, the 9, the 4 and the 5 as well, all over 2 minutes. So I wouldn't want anyone to think that we were doing what frankly happens in TfL and happens on the M25, where every couple of decades a few more lanes are added to it. That creates a latent demand. That absolutely is not what we're doing in this scheme. This is a scheme which is about creating a better integrated, more efficient junction at a key part of our city, which very positively and very thankfully is growing significantly. So I hope that addresses the point. I do take away from the discussion we had of scrutiny and indeed from your question that we need to do a better job of communicating that scheme. We clearly haven't got that right on the first attempt, and I need to make sure that I am clearer with residents in Kevin and people who have a particular interest in this, that this aligns with our transport strategy and the vision that we set out there. I want to make sure that we are much more explicit about that than we have been so far. On Ms. Rossingham's point in terms of IKEA cycling, so this happened 2 or 3 years ago. I think there's a piece of learning for us to do as a planning department. I wasn't the cabinet member responsible for it, they're no longer in the chamber. There is a significant issue around the tightness around which we draw our planning conditions, and it's quite clear that in the example of IKEA, there was far too much wriggle room was given to them to do that. We need to make sure we tighten up, which I think we've done. We've reviewed the processes that we have in place to ensure that developers can't wriggle out of those in the future, and that is still a very live issue. So we are still in communication alongside Cycle Sheffield, who are doing a fantastic job on this issue, to make sure that even if there's a legal requirement, there is quite clearly still a moral requirement for IKEA to deliver what was promised as part of the planning application. Mr. Budden asked about pollution within the city centre. So I'm very clear as well. The clean air zone that we are proposing, the date for that would be the end of 2020. That is not just about tackling pollution within the inner ring road. That has a knock-on effect on pollution and air quality across the city as well. And it's also the case as well, as we've said explicitly many times, that just having a clean air zone is not the sum of our ambition. That will get us to compliant air, legally compliant air. It won't get us to safe air, and that's why we need to do so much more around prioritising active transport and making sure cycling and walking and public transport are more attractive offers. Mr. Sheridan asked about why don't we use the powers that we have. Mr. Sheridan, why don't we ask the powers that we have already under those transport acts? And the answer is very clear, I'm afraid. Although we have a power to instigate those, there is a Secretary of State approval required, and then the Secretary of State, the current Secretary of State, every Secretary of State since 2010 has been explicit in saying that they do not support the charging of car users. So whether or not the council does or not, we need a different and better Secretary of State if that's something that people wish to pursue. But as things stand at the moment, there's no purpose in us devoting officer time and resources and money and consultation on a scheme which in all likelihood would never see the light of day, because we have a Conservative Secretary of State who refuses to take this issue seriously at all. And I want to be honest with you about that as well. And then Naomi asked as well, I think, around the workplace parking levy. So that was a manifesto commitment of the Labour Party. We've identified funding for next year to begin the study on that piece of work. That's absolutely not to say it will definitely happen. There are about 52 different barriers we have to overcome and hurdles we have to get over for that to be instigated. But we were elected, and I was elected in May, on a promise that we would consider that study and undertake that. I've been to Nottingham along with Councillor Linders Hammond. We have seen in kind of first person the impact that has and some of the benefits that a workplace parking levy can secure for a city. And of course, it was one of the main ways that Nottingham was able to support to increase the use of their tram network. That's not to say it's actually going to happen. We've committed to the study, which I hope will start in the next couple of months. That will then take us 6 or 9 months to complete. And I'm sure that will be something of significant interest to many of the people in the gallery and indeed the city, should it be something that we're able to move forward with in the future. I hope that answers all the questions, but if I've missed anything else at all, please do email me and I will come back to you later. Thank you very much.